Hi everyone. I believe you can hear me clearly. Okay. If you can put a one. If not, put a zero. All right. So today would be going pretty chilled on this, right? Even though we have a lot of news about attacks, cybersecurity crimes, and here and there. Okay. What I'll be focusing on today is basically the hidden risk of open banking initiatives with a focus on API vulnerabilities. All right. So these slides would basically help every fintech out there, the institutions, help them protect customer data and ensure secure API usage. So let's take it on. So a little on myself. So here, just like Christian said, I'm the engineering manager and cybersecurity specialist at Bitnop. I've had over 4 years of experience in building and securing APIs for financial applications, and also lead security initiatives at Bitnop as well. I have a master's in cybersecurity and a BSc in information technology. I've also driven compliance for PCI DSS and also GDPR, and I mentor and contribute to open source as well as a software engineer. So with all these experiences, I'm going to be throwing a lot of recommendations when it comes to overcoming the risk of API vulnerabilities. So what is open banking in the first place? Let's look at it. So open banking, yeah, it's an API-driven innovation allowing third-party providers access to banking services, and it enables greater competition, enhanced user experience, and financial transparency. Now, you might ask, okay, what is API-driven innovation? What is API? So API simply stands for Application Programming Interface, right? Now, what does it do? It basically acts as a connector with two businesses. So two banks, for example, let's say a Cosmo with an HSBC bank. Okay, when they want to collaborate programmatically, they use what we call the API. That's exactly why, because we don't see what happens with the API. It only happens logically, right? So that's why the attackers are able to do things without, okay, people knowing, and they just steal. All right. So why security? Since it's an API and it opens the banking platform, it also increases the attack surface for cyber criminals. Right. So let's look at this ecosystem very carefully. So the risks of the open banking are located in the API vulnerabilities that has to do with data security, privacy concerns, and also we have regulatory landscape where we have the payment system directives by the EU, okay, where it has to be, they are provided an opportunity for businesses to be able to collaborate, right? So it means it's open, the more opportunity to open the bank, the more vulnerabilities, right? And also we have GDPR, that's General Data Protection Regulation, that has to do with data privacy. Okay, so that as well is a law that you have to follow when collecting people's data. We also have cybersecurity challenges where there are a lot of risks as well. Okay, here we have API exploits such as injection attacks and also authentication issues. And also, lastly, we have trust and security measures. So when connecting with a different business, the question is, do I trust this party? All right. So the vendor risk management needs to be looked at. How do they manage their risk as well before I connect with them? So these are things that are risk, and we'll be looking at how to cover all of them. And at least what we're going to see today, if we have 20% or 30% in terms of protection before, we should be moving towards 90%. Okay, so let's look at this scenario. A very simple scenario between two businesses, right? So we have a company called Moneybag that has done the hard work, probably um, built a physical office. Okay, KYC users, that is, KYC stands for Know Your Customer, right? They've asked for customers' addresses, first name, last name, background, just to be able to open an account for them. Okay, and then one day they decided to expose their data. That's the data they've been collecting from people via the API to any company willing to provide financial services like payments or loans. All right. Now, Moneybag is a company. They've built their system and now they expose their data via the API. Then we have a second company, Cosmo Wallet. It's in a remote location somewhere in a different country. Okay, now they want to probably provide loans to its users, or users of a country where money bag is also existing, right? They want to provide loans. So instead of having to do all the heavy lifting, all the work, right? Money bag has already done the heavy lifting. Okay, that is, they don't have to go and KYC customers or know about the customers. They just need to connect to Moneybag's API and get this data directly. And with this data, they can be able to derive the credit score, okay, and know how much loans to give to these users. Now, in this case, these two companies have collaborated, which is good. But the problem lies in what happens when this API connection is not properly secured. All right, let's look at statistics before we look at the risk. So in 2023, the fintech space is worth over $226 billion. That's according to Exploding Topics in 2024. That is what it just reported. And there are approximately 30,000 fintech startups out there. Visa is the largest fintech. I'm sure we all know Visa, the card service providers, and they are worth almost $500 billion USD. Now, this fast-growing space is projected to reach about 917.17 billion by 2032. Now, you can see how this is growing. It means that, of course, attackers want to go where the money is, right? So we should be expecting more sophisticated attacks in the future. All right. So now, why is API security important in open banking? Let's look at this. So why is it important? The APIs connect bank systems to third-party apps. So that's like I've been explaining, right? With our money bag and small wallet. And APIs are often handling highly sensitive financial data, making them a prime target for attacks. And there are statistics that show that 92% of fintech say they have experienced a significant security issue in production APIs over the past year. That is 2023, 2022. Now, when we say production API, we're talking about the APIs that me and you use today. If I take my phone and you say, let me send money to somebody on this call right now, that particular money goes to your wallet directly, okay, through an API or some sort, right? So, and these fintech companies are reporting that they have experienced 92% of them, almost all of them, report security issues. So you can imagine, right? So now, according to Impeva, attacks on business logics of APIs accounted for the largest share, that is 27%, followed by automated attacks, as automation attacks, 19%. And then this included credentials, surfing, fake account creation, and so on. Okay, because when these risks are not breached or taken care of, somebody can take my data without me knowing. Why? Because they're able to get it from an API somewhere on the internet and then create an account with my details and act as me, right? Now, that not just that, they can also steal my credentials that a particular company has taken. And these companies are reporting these issues. So it means it's a big deal. Now, let's look at some live events that happened in the past. Just one, that's Cosmo Bank. That's in India in 2018. So what the attackers did was they used an API vulnerability to authorized fraudulent transfers, resulting in nearly $13.5 million stolen. This breach shows how a single API weakness can lead to massive financial losses, right? So attackers gaining access to the API, forging withdrawal requests from an ATM, okay, from accounts, and approving them in the system without authorization. So the vulnerability here is bad authentication and authorization controls on the API, allowing fraudulent transfers to be processed without detection. So here, realize that the API did not have a proper authentication and authorization controls. That is exactly why how it was breached, and it cost the company $13.5 million. This is probably years worth of revenue or profit, just in a twinkle of an eye. So details on some common risks. So what are some of the common risks that has caused that to happen? So incorrect access controls or weak authentication as seen on the Cosmo attack. All right. So some of us might ask, okay, so what is authentication? What is authorization? Let me quickly chip that in. So authentication here has to do with getting access to the system. So for example, when you take your phone and then you're able to do a biometrics or put a password, you have been able to get into the phone. Now that is authentication. But then when you're in the phone, what can you access? Are you able to access the chat application? Are you able to access? What are you able to access? When you're able to access your chat application, it means that being inside the phone after being authenticated, you are able to, you have the authorization to access what other apps. Okay, that's exactly the difference. So the permission basically depicts what you are able to access when you get into the phone. Right. And also have another issue here, insecure data transmission channels, exposing data, sensitive data to interception using HTTP. Also have APIs without rate limiting, meaning it's allowing for brute force attacks, whereby you're able to send about, the attacker is able to send about 1,000 requests at a time. You know what that means? So it means that if I'm creating an account and I click on create, or I click on send, when I want to send money, that's one request. But then this attacker is able to send 1,000 in the matter of 2 seconds. So if you don't put rate limiting, it means this can happen to your API. Insufficient authentication and authorization mechanism, yes. That is OAuth issues. If you don't have sufficient authentication, they can have these issues. And then allowing unused path to be open, not performing due diligence on tools or API to integrate, no regular API penetration testing routine in place. Now the question is, okay, now that we've seen all the risk, what are some of the things we can do to prevent this? So let's address them. And here are some great recommendations here. So first, know that APIs have direct access to your data. They have direct access to your data. Let me give you an example. You realize that there are sometimes you receive an email from a bank or from somebody, be like, I've never communicated with this business. How come they have my email? They have my contact. How did they get to me? Okay, so that alone, some of us will ignore because, of course, when you get things like that, you just ignore. But then when you are curious, like, how did they get the information? Of course, you can't know because the person attacking the company that has your data is probably in the East Coast or in somewhere in the world. They don't even know they are being attacked. That's how bad it is. All right. So as a business, what I would suggest is you prevent having shadow APIs. And what are shadow APIs? They are APIs that you don't even know they exist, but they do in your system. So discover and document all APIs in your environment and categorize them according to the sensitivity of the data to which you have access to. So if you have two APIs for when an account is created, an API for when money is being transferred, an API for authentication, an API for login, make sure you categorize everything and know how categorize them based on risk level. Of course, the transfer API takes money out of the system. So the risk is high. Everything is high. So you need to protect it with maximum security. Also implement API gateways. Okay, so API gateways. These API gateways support OAuth 2 should support JWT, that JSON Web Token, or 2.0 there stands for Open Authentication, and we also have IP whitelisting. So you should have gateways. And when I say gateway, meaning have one point at which you consolidate all the access to your business API, so that you can provide all the security mechanism to that point. And when anybody is coming to your company to attack or via the API, they are passing through that interface and you're able to block them. Now, given this example, if you have a house and you have one gate, Of course, when there's an attack, this is exactly the entry. So you're monitoring that place. That's why you mount the dog there, you mount the security guard, you mount the cameras all at the door. But when you have three gates or 4 gates, what happens? You're increasing the risk vector. So it means that as you're buying a security dog for the gate 1, you're buying for the next gate, for the third gate. Don't take one over the other. Otherwise, you might be attacked. So that's exactly why API gateway is very important. And I would suggest a Kong, that's the Kong gateway. It's very good and open source and support all of these security mechanisms I mentioned. All right, so check that out. And we also have for access to dashboards. So if you have internal tools in your business where you are maybe a programmer, you're a software engineer, you're a manager, you work in a company, any internal dashboard you guys use or you use, make sure you enable 2FA. That's two-factor authentication. Do not use email OTP because your email can be forged. Your email can be hacked. And not every email provider provides good security. Okay, so don't rely on email for 2FA. And also enable account lockout of 3SM. So if let's say we have you're trying to access the dashboard, or maybe someone is trying to log in, when they fail their login attempt, maximum 3 times, log them out, block the IP address. All right. And then if it's somebody that then you can then manually remove them from the block list. This basically prevents the attack surface as well. And they also have ideal time. When somebody has logged in and they are not active for 10 minutes, log them out automatically. You might not be the programmer, but then this at least you should give to the programmer or you should implement to your business to basically prevent these attacks. And then we also have the last, not the last, but yeah, the next one here. Never share API keys via email or workspace. When I say workspace, I'm talking about Slack or Teams or Discord, anyone you use, because you can forget them there. And one day, when one of your employees is at home, you don't know who they are with, right? So somebody can just pick the what's it called, the key from there, either using shoulder suffering or even that person's computer can be hacked, and those information will be taken from the system. So there's a tool I use called One Time Secret. You can check that out. With that tool, you can set the time to which the link or the secret that you've shared should expire. So whenever they try to go there after, let's say 10 minutes, 1 hour, it's crumbled. It's no longer exist. So if you're a business and you're integrating with other company and they want to share, you want to share API keys so that they connect, One Time Secret is the go-to. All right. And they also have the next one here in terms of real-time notifications, right? You want to know whatever happens on your system. So for example, when a transfer of $100 is made, you're cool. But then when a transfer of $100,000 is made, you want to be able to know as a business owner, as a manager, or as a developer, you want to know how your code works. All right. You can automate this using a tool called Alerta. That is usealerta.com. And this tool basically allows you to know every single thing whilst you're programming or whilst you're on the go, anywhere you are, you're going to get the messages directly on your Slack or on your Teams, and you'll be able to take action on the next. Okay. Also, if there's a fraudulent event, maybe somebody transfers the money twice on a split second, you're able to know with this tool. And then the next is never try to manage your passwords, because you would always forget, oh, have I used this before? Have I used that before? There are amazing tools like Bitwarden, LastPass. I'm so sure some of you might be used to LastPass already. So just check it out if you're not used to. Then we also have carry out regular API penetration testing. All right. And thanks to APIsec University, so they have a new tool called APIsec.ai, which I think it's on beta right now, which can be tested. So this particular tool can help you to automate the testing of the APIs without you having to look for an expert. And even as an expert, you can also use it to not to fast track your API testing. All right, so that is a recommended one. And we also have network scan. You can use Nmap for that. Now, network scan in the sense that you might not know, maybe you might install a package when in your system, your network, or in your business, and then it probably expose one or two ports that you did not expose, but the application exposed. Why? Because you confirmed allow, next, confirm, finish. You finish the installation, right? But then with Nmap, you can scan for open port and close them when you discover them. Otherwise, once an attacker detects it, they can fetch all your data and probably send you a ransom. Now, if you do not pay $100,000, we're going to expose this data out there. It happens every day. As I'm talking to you now, it's probably happening somewhere. All right. And you realize that all the business data, credit card numbers, CCV or CVVs are all out there, and everybody is is tensed. All right. So you don't want that to happen to you as well. We also have encrypt data in transit and data at rest. So when the data is being transferred from via the internet or anywhere, ensure that data is encrypted. Of course, HTTPS using the TLS, okay, and also using the SHA-512, you can encrypt the data at rest, meaning before the data is stored in your database, ensure it's been encrypted. When you're retrieving it, decrypt it. You might be thinking of processing time, but guess what? When you lose millions of dollars, you would wish you had encrypted data at rest. All right, so that is that. Thank you very much, guys. That's basically, and these are the references. If you need the slides, I can basically share the slides with you. You can reach out to me on IG or Twitter if you have any questions. That is my username. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vincent. We do have a couple questions.